Welcome everybody, this is Kim Peterson from InterDyn BMI. Today's presentation is Single Sign-On Salesforce and Microsoft Active Directory. Excited about today's presentation. We're going to kick it off with two folks from our organization, Fred and also Derek. We'll be doing this presentation together. And here's the agenda. Take it away, guys.
So this is Derek. We're going to start off just taking a look at the steps for deploying single sign-on infrastructure, and Fred's going to lead us through that, and then we'll take a look at what are the steps to actually set up the Salesforce and Active Directory single sign-on. And then if we have some time at the end, we'll do Q&A, and we'll just go ahead and get started right into the steps. So Fred, walk us through what it takes to set up the infrastructure.
Okay, thanks, Derek. If you know, let's see, let me share out one of my screens here and we'll get started. Okay, so to start off, you know, I tend to do a lot of thinking about, you know, IT and infrastructure, things like that, and commonalities, and you know, being a full-time consultant, it's in my best interest to have a good solid understanding of infrastructure framework and all the commonality and the pieces between them. So the other day I was actually sitting here kind of thinking about what's the one thing that flows across every piece of hardware, every piece of software, every piece of equipment, data, files, everything in the network. Identity. So your user account, a service account, a computer account, whatever it may be, identity is the key to every basically everything that there is in IT. You use your identity to log in, you use your identity to show you have access to a resource or a file, and maintaining that identity and a unified architecture is key to success for any organization. You don't want to have your users running around with a half dozen different usernames and passwords that you have to manage and maintain. So the obvious solution to that is centralized identity management and single sign-on services delivered through that. And one of the main choices out there these days is the Microsoft Azure Active Directory system. And that system is synchronizes with your on-prem Active Directory that you already have existing. And it provides identity to not only Azure and Office 365, but to well over 2,000 other applications out there. And one of those is Salesforce, so that's what we're here to talk about today. So to start out with Azure Active Directory, it's actually part of the Office 365 infrastructure. So I've pulled into my 365 tenant here. So we can see on the left here we've got Azure AD listed under the admin panel over here, and we've already got it set up, and I just want to kind of walk through the process with you today just to let you know how that functionality works, how to deploy it, how to implement it and make it work. So to start out with, obviously we've got our Salesforce implementation set up. We've got our Office 365 environment set up here, and I've also got an on-prem network server set up with it's part of a domain and runs our credentials from that. So the first thing I want to do is I want to set up my Active Directory synchronization with Azure AD. And how I'm going to do that is I'm going to go into my server and I'm going to download the Azure AD Connect tool. So this tool is the tool that synchronizes your directory with Office 365 and Azure AD and consequently Salesforce and everything else. The first thing we need to do when we open this up is we need to do a little bit of prep work first. We need to prepare our domain and our users. So the two things we need to do is we need to decide what organizational units inside of our directory we want to synchronize, because if we don't want to synchronize everything, so we don't need all these users and groups listed in there. We just want the users that are going to be utilizing that. So most directories will be set up in this format where we have our company name, and underneath that maybe sites, users, whatever that is. But we need to define which organizational units we want to synchronize and then have our users and our objects in those. Once that part is done, we do need to ensure that we have our UPN that matches Office 365 And we do that under Domains and Trusts, and we'll just pop in here and look. And this is the UPN that we have tied to our 365 account. So we've got those two pieces set up and ready to go. So going into the Azure Active Directory Connect, now obviously we've already set it up, but I want to run through the setup again. So when we start this, the first thing we're going to get is it's going to want a set of creds to connect to the Office space. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to give it my admin creds for that. Okay, and this is going to connect to our tenant, and it looks like it's successfully connected. Now I'm going to need to give it local creds to access the local directory. Oops. Okay. And then, so this will show me what my options are. And as I mentioned before, we don't want to synchronize everything. We just want to synchronize the organization that we want to use. In this case, it's the Engaged Consulting. So this will grab computers, contacts, security groups, servers, users, all those kind of things under here. So we're going to select that option. The next page, we've got a couple options here to check. There is an option for Exchange hybrid deployment. This one can be a little bit complicated as to whether we need to pick that, and some of these other ones, you know, that gets into more complicated setup, and that's kind of outside what we're looking at right now. But the two things we want to do is password synchronization, and we want to do password write back. So we'll go ahead and check those two boxes. We'll go to next, and we'll run the configuration. Now what this is going to do is it's going to synchronize our users with Office 365. So we can see now that we have our synced users here. So those are synced with our on-prem directory. Once we have that set up, we have the ability to manage that in Azure AD. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to log in here. And as soon as this comes up, we'll look at our options quickly. All right, so now we're in our Azure AD, and we can see we've got our synchronized users from our local Active Directory that's showing here. And then we'll have groups. I didn't really have anything set up here. We've got a place to manage applications, and Eric will touch on that shortly. But I want to go into configuration, just run through a couple of these configuration options quickly. We can brand the single sign-on using company logos, things like that. This user is enabled for password reset. That allows your users to reset the password themselves by using either a text message to their cell phone or an email to an alternate email address or a voice prompt to change that. So that it takes the burden of having to change passwords off of your IT department and puts it on the user, and they can handle it themselves. There's some notification options in here that recommend setting up. You now have the ability to do multi-factor authentication with this, so you have your users can log in with the username and password. They'll get a challenge response on their phone. They type it in, and it lets them in. Highly secure setup for that. You can also set up some other options to let Windows 10 computers join using Active Directory and things like that there. But so setting those up and enabling the write back are the main features that you want to do, and get those in there. And you can restrict IPs as well. But so once we've got those set up, now we have the ability to have users reset their own passwords. We can use multi-factor authentication, and then we can use single sign-on on the server desktop or user desktop, and their credentials will pass through into the Salesforce application, and all their data and things will tie into that. So once all the options are set up, you save and apply that setting and that configuration, and then you will get your Active Directory basic licenses with your Office 365. If you want to use the Multi Factor Authentication, you will have to upgrade to the Active Directory Premium licenses. Those are available through the Office 365 portal. The other piece that you may or may not want to implement in this is Active Directory Federation Services, which allows your local directory to actually provide authentication to Microsoft. So the purpose of this is that somebody logs in, that login request will go back to your network. It'll ask for permission, and it'll come back to Microsoft and say yes, yes, permission, and allow them to log in. The purpose for that is the directory synchronization only happens every few hours. So if you've got 1,000 users, you're very likely to have password change requests come in, which will set you out of sync, and you could be up to 3 hours before that resynchronizes. Using ADFS, the authentication is live, so there's no gap between changing the password on-prem and in Office 365. Once your licenses are applied and your users are set up, you have your infrastructure in place, and you'll move into the Salesforce configuration, which I will hand over to Derek.
Great, thanks, Fred. So, what we've essentially seen there is getting all of the components ready in the Office 365. So when we move to Salesforce, and now we're going to actually set up the single sign-on between Salesforce and Office 365. Those users now that are in your domain on-prem are now synchronized with the Office 365 users. So one of the first steps, one of the prerequisites, if you will, for setting up the single sign-on is that we have to have the My Domain customized. And you can see here that I've done that already. Those steps in terms of setting that up are under Domain Management. And if we go to My Domain, essentially setting that up, if you haven't set that up already, you just basically set up the My Domain, and it's going to enter what your domain is, and then you'll set that to redirect. In this case, we're choosing that we don't want to log in at the login.salesforce.com, but that we actually want to require our users to log in at the My Domain. This is a sandbox, so this is a development account, and so that's why we've got the duplicate dev in here, in terms of understanding that. But once you set your domain, then that will go in as a domain request. That'll take usually a couple hours with Salesforce to register and to get your domain finalized. And then once it is finalized, you'll get an email basically stating that your domain is ready. And then this is the URL that you log into with Salesforce. So that has to be set up because we're going to actually use that My Domain in some of the first steps. So we'll go now and begin the configuration. So here I am. I've logged in as an admin into the Office 365, and I'm going to need to go into the admin tools there to be able to work on the single sign-on. And we're going to go down to the Azure Active Directory. And from here, all right, Fred, let's see what we've got here. Get into the account. Let's try signing out again. All right, we will close the browser.
love doing live demos, don't you?
Yep. So we'll enter our credentials here. There we go. So here we're going to get into our Active Directory.
Hey Derek, you can use the 365 admin. That one was definitely working.
Okay, let's see if that gets into our Azure Active Directory. There we go. All right, so from within Azure Active Directory, we are going to go into our the Active Directory here, and here Fred had walked us through the setup of the users, the groups, and some of the configuration. We're going to go into Application, and we're going to come down here. If this is the first time doing it, we'd come down and hit Add. We're going to add an application from the gallery. And then we'll just do, and as you can see, you know, Fred had mentioned there's a lot of different connection points. Here we're going to choose Sandbox. Now, again, if you're doing this with a dev org, then you'll do Sandbox, do a Sandbox. With your production org, just choosing Salesforce. Here we've done that. So I'm just going to open this up, and once you add it, once you add that application to the Active Directory group, then we will see basically this page. This is our configuration page, and so we're going to go, and I'm just going to minimize this a little so that we can flip back and forth between the two. So what we're going to do is we're going to walk through the steps of our configuration. And we'll just start, it really walks us through these steps 1, 2, 3. So we're going to start with configuring single sign-on. We're going to use the Microsoft Azure AD single sign-on. Here is the sign-on URL, which is the My Domain. So this is where it's important to have the My Domain already set up. That is, that value is right down here, but it's also the first value, the beginning value here in the URL when you're logged into Salesforce. So we're just going to take that and copy it and paste it in right here, and that then gives us the sign-on URL. Then we'll go to the next step. And here now we have the configuration. So we have a certificate that we'll need to download, and we'll need to upload this into Salesforce. So we're going to basically download this. We'll download it here into our download directory. That's all we need is just to download it. And then in step number 2, we're going to configure some URLs here. And in order to do this, we're going to need to go set up. We're going to take these URLs in our Windows setup and go configure those in Salesforce. And so we're going to go into Salesforce and in Setup, go to Single Sign-On. And here we're going to set up a SAML single sign-on account. So essentially, you're going to hit New if you've not done that to begin with, and then we've got this set up. So I'll just open it here. This name is the name that the users potentially see when they log in. You have a choice in Salesforce to either allow a login page, which would be typical for what you would see when you're logging into Salesforce, and or allow them to just do single sign-on via the SAML settings. So if you don't want users to actually log into Salesforce at all, then you would remove that login, and we'll do that as one of the final steps. I'll show you where that configuration takes place. But this is the name, and this name would be what they would see in that case when they have the choice of logging in. So, we're going to name that. The issuer URL, and this is where we're going to take some settings. We're going to take these settings from the issuer URL. We're just going to copy this, and you can see here that we can very easily copy that. If we're editing or filling this out, we're going to paste that right in the issuer URL here. In terms of the identity certificate, we're going to go find that file that we just downloaded, and so we go to our download files, and here is that certificate that we just downloaded. So we'd select that, and once that's selected, it would be listed right here. We've already done that when we set this up. Then we're going to just choose the default. So we're going to use the default certificate, the default value for the security method. The decryption is not encrypted. The SAML identity type is going to be the user's Salesforce username. The location is the username identifier in the subject statement. And then here we're going to update this one to a redirect. Let me just confirm that. We're going to choose HTTP redirect, and then here in the login and log out URLs, those we're going to get here from the setup in Active Directory. So we again just copy the login URL, paste it right in here. Copy the sign out URL and put that in the log out URL. And then if you had a custom URL that you wanted to use for an error message, you certainly could put that URL in here. We don't. And then if we are setting up user provisioning enabled, we would check that box as well. And then we save. User provisioning we're not going to do. We need federated the federated ID. So it's actually the integration with Active Directory is going to do the user provisioning in the other direction. So we'll save that, and then we're all set. So that's essentially the setup. And then the one last step that we need to do to enable this would be then go back to my domain here. And you can see here that under the authentication services, we have two. We have the login page, and we have the name of our SAML single sign-on. And so here, that's just simply, when you're editing that, a simple checkbox. If you want to allow both, you leave both checked. If you want to only have Office 365 and the Active Directory single sign-on, then you would just leave that as the only one that you have checked. So once that's done, let me show you then kind of what this process looks like, and we will take a quick login here to a remote desktop. So here we have Mark Harris at Engage Consulting logging in the morning to be able to access his account. One of the first things he's going to do is is connect and log into his Office 365. And begin his day. And so here's his Office 365. He can go in and start, checking his email, looking at all of those, whatever work he's got going on. When we run down to all of his applications that are available, we'll see that because I'm sorry. Let me finish our setup here. So that's our first step in our here with Active Directory. We need to confirm once that setup is done in Salesforce, we need to go in and here check this box, which basically says that this setup is now done in Salesforce, and we're going to enable this single sign-on and get this working. And so we click next, and then we have a place here to be able to put a notification email. You'll see that this is an email that basically sends notices in case there's issues with the single sign-on. So your administrator or whoever is going to be receiving those would receive those. Once this step is done, we click check. We check that off. Then we have to go in and actually enable the user provisioning or the account provisioning. Here we're going to define a system admin account that we're going to use, and so we're going to add that system admin account, the password, and the security token. The security token is handled through the user management. So if you need a new security token or need to know where that is, you'll go to My Settings. You would go to Personal, Reset My Security Token, and just hit this button. And any user can do this. This is going to send an email with that security token value, so that's how you would get your security token. Once you get that email, you just paste it right in here. Then you can test the connection, and this we want to see as connected, and so the Active Directory can connect to Salesforce as that admin. And here here's where we do the automatic provisioning of the accounts, and we're going to do it through Active Directory, and we're going to basically sync that to the user object, and then we're going to put in a notification here for any errors that are received when the account provisioning is done. Here, because we're not going to automatically set this up because this is a sandbox, we have basically 2 licenses in Salesforce. So we want to be careful that the licenses that you have in Active Directory are the same number, or you've got licensing for everybody in Salesforce, so that when it does the automatic account provisioning, it's got the correct number of licenses to do that. And then when you turn on the provisioning, you can just hit the Start Provisioning Now, and then this step is finished. We've done that already in terms of the provisioning, and then the final step is just then determining who has access to this application, to this Salesforce application. So here we're going to take a look at all the users and groups. We'll just go to all users. We'll run that and get a list back of all the users that we have in the Active Directory. And here then we're going to assign them to certain permission sets. So here, let's say David Strom, we would select him, assign him, and then it's going to be able to reference all of the profiles in Salesforce. We'd select the correct profile to be used, and then provision that account. And then you can see here Mark Harris is set up as a standard user, and that he now has that account, that provisioning, and so then when we go into his account here, that's what gives him the access to this application. So under his applications, when he logs in, now he has the Salesforce application because we've set that up and provisioned him with the access to that application. So to do the single sign-on here in Office 365, all we have to do is select that single sign-on. Here you can see he has an option of logging in via single sign-on or logging in with the login. And that option is granted there because because in our setup under the My Domain, we left both of these checkboxes checked. If we had unchecked the login page, then it would have logged directly into Office 365. So here it gives a choice. We'll choose that, and here we are, single sign-on, using the application in Office 365. We were able to authenticate directly into Salesforce without having to enter credentials again. So that completes the single sign-on between Office 365, the Azure Active Directory, and Salesforce. So that's really that's the benefit. That's the users don't have to worry about credentials in Salesforce any longer, resetting credentials. They have basically their domain credentials if you're using a part of the Microsoft stack, and also Salesforce, and that's the value of the single sign-on. So thank you very much for attending today. Kim, do you have anything else for us?
Nope, thank you very much. I do not. So this recording will be put on our BMI site for YouTube so that you can go back, re-listen, and share it with other folks. Thank you very much, gentlemen. Appreciate your time and also this learning.